Welcome to Brown's Bag. This is Margaret Brown, and today's topic from my bag of interests is keeping your dog safe and healthy during extremely hot weather. June 2025 was Earth's third warmest June since 1850. That's according to NOAA, NASA, and several other organizations who keep track of these things. June 2023 and 2024 were actually hotter, as hard as that is to believe. Since we aren't done with the heat just yet, I want to go on record to say that I am not a fan. I was born in Texas, and I could never understand why. Lots of folks do like the heat, though, and that's fine with me. But I do worry about people who take their pets, and we're talking dogs for the most part, with them into the heat of the day. Since I'm no expert on this topic, I'm talking with a volunteer from the Middleburg Humane Foundation, which is a no-kill shelter that rescues, rehabilitates, and rehomes animals in need and promotes animal welfare. Jenna Sindle, PhD, has been volunteering for the Middleburg Humane Foundation for 6 years. She started out as a kitten foster parent and now does technical work for them in the clinic. Thanks for joining me, Jenna.
It's lovely to be here, Margaret. Thank you for having me.
Sure. Before I start asking lots of questions, tell me a bit about yourself and how you became involved with the Middleburg Humane Foundation.
I love animals, and so it's always been important to me to volunteer in a capacity where I'm working with animals, helping them find their forever homes, and supporting the organizations that do that. So I started out volunteering with Middleburg Humane Foundation about 6 years ago as a kitten foster, as you said, which means that my house gets full of kittens during kitten season, which runs now from January to December. As the climate warms, cats have a longer breeding season, and so there's more kittens more often. And then I decided that I'd like to try something different in the volunteering domain with animal shelters, and I started volunteering at the Middleburg Humane Foundation's clinic. They run spay-neuter clinics and vaccination clinics, both free and low cost, and we actually have we have two coming up in August, which we can share more information about at the end of the podcast. But these clinics support the communities that are in Fauquier County, Loudoun County, Clark County, and beyond to make sure that both people's pets and the community cats that live within these communities get medical care, and most importantly for the community cats, get spayed and neutered so that they stop reproducing and our kitten problem can begin to be contained.
I didn't realize that with the change in climate, that the change in the season for cats had grown or had expanded so much. That's actually not great. I'm hoping that people will take advantage of this, of what you're doing there. But let's talk about our main topic, and we can visit again on other topics later. The fact that cats and dogs don't sweat the way humans do. They actually, if you're a pet owner, I own dogs. I know that when my dog is panting, that means that it's, that's how he's sweating, right? I have two male dogs. So they're sweating by panting or grooming. And I didn't know this, but they have sweat glands in their little tiny paws. So when the temperatures rise, they don't have the same ability that we do to cool down quickly. They also can't turn on the air conditioner. I mean, if they could, I'd be very impressed, but they can't. And so they can get overwhelmed pretty quickly. They can overheat within minutes. And it's not just in hot cars. It's during just their walk, right? So you experienced something recently that was tragic. Why don't you share that with the people who are listening?
I did. So one Saturday, actually, I was at the clinic and we were just finishing up. And we got an emergency call that a dog had collapsed and was in need of help. It was a 92-degree day, which doesn't seem that hot, but the humidity was pushing 97 to 100%. And this was a very big dog. It was the middle of the day, and unfortunately, the dog didn't survive. And it really got me thinking about our pets in these really hot conditions as the climate changes. And we know, there's been a lot of information about not taking the dogs out because their paw pads burn on the hot asphalt or on pavement. But this issue of heat stroke is something that I think a lot of people don't know about, and they don't know what to do. And some of the things that you might think to do in treating heat stroke are actually contradictory to getting the dog back on their feet.
Oh, okay. That's interesting, because I was about to say, what are some signs and then what can we do? So first, let's just say, first of all, it's all dogs, right? I have little dachshunds and they have little tiny legs. And I know, like, I get up really early and I take them out as soon as possible. But even this morning at 6:45, I could tell when the humidity kicked in. It was a big difference between 6 o'clock in the morning and 6:45. So it changes it for me. So I know it must change it for them. And I knew that I was having this call today. So I was thinking in those terms of like how it's not just the heat, it's the humidity. We can talk about, that's a whole nother topic for whether you're from New Mexico or Texas, right? Or someplace like that, where it's not humid versus where it is humid. But I don't think it matters what the breed of dog is. So let's talk a little bit about those signs of how would I know, besides, I don't know what, how would I know if my dog's starting to overheat?
So Margaret, you make a great point. It is all dogs. If you think about it, no matter their coat, they're wearing a fur coat when it's 95 degrees and 97% humidity. We wouldn't handle that situation well, and we have agency through voice and through that air conditioning switch, which your dachshunds can't reach, and neither can my Welsh Springer Spaniels. So we have to really be their advocates and their guardians in these situations. The first signs of heat stroke are very different from sort of the last signs of heat stroke. So what I'm going to talk about right now are those sort of serious signs where your dog is out, your dog is panting excessively, your dog is getting sort of unsteady on its feet and dizzy, and its eyes are getting glassy. Those are all very bad signs, and you want to act quickly to get your dog not just into the shade, but into a cooled, air-conditioned environment where you can help them reduce their internal temperature quickly. But as a pet owner, it's my responsibility, like you said, to check the weather. It's been excessively hot overnight, so even walking early in the morning or late in the evening hasn't been a guaranteed way to keep your pet cool, because with the climate changing, we're not getting those breaks in the early morning and late evening that we used to get. So we need to be conscious of it all the time. And then the first way, and to me this is the moment I see this sign, is a sign that I'm getting my dogs back to the car, back home quickly, and getting them cooled down, is always look at their tongue. So when a dog is cool, its tongue is in its mouth, it's flat, and they may be panting because they're a little warm, they need a drink, whatever. As they get hotter, they stick their tongue out further. And the sign for me, that is sort of number one, is the tongue out and sort of dangling. That's my first marker. And then you really want to get your dog into a cool place if your dog's tongue is fully extended and the tip of the tongue can actually flare open to increase the surface area of their tongue for cooling. And if you see that sort of really elongated tongue with a flared tip, get your dog home, get your dog back to the car.
Interesting. I did not know that. Thank you so much. So what would I do right away besides get them into air conditioning? I see the dog's, I'm with my dogs. His tongue is extended. His flared tip. I realize, oh no, in my case, it's the dachshund. I can pick him up and take him somewhere. Right. But what should I do besides get him into air conditioning as soon as possible?
You want to make sure that you're beginning to cool the dog's core straight away. And while water is, like drinking water is a good thing, they may not be in a position where they want to drink. They may just be too hot. So you really want to cool their body off very, very quickly, starting from the inside out. The number one thing to do when you're cooling your dog down is not to use ice or iced water. That can actually have the reverse effect because it causes the blood vessels to constrict instead of expand to cool. So you don't want to be putting your dog in an ice bath. You don't want to be sort of putting ice blocks on them, around them, or ice packs or anything like that. What you want to do is with cool water, you could pop them in a bath to get them to cool down, hose them off with the shower attachment, or you could wet towels so that they were cool and then pop them over the dog's abdomen, midsection, and head to really help bring that core temperature back down into a healthy range.
Okay, so the abdomen, midsection, and head. Okay, got it, with towels, right? Okay, got it.
Please. So towels that have been soaked in cool water or running.
But not ice water and no ice. Okay.
Yeah, no ice water. Keeping it cool, but not super cold, because you don't want to shock their body in the other direction. You want to make sure that their blood vessels are able to transport that cool into their body.
Interesting. Should I call the vet right away? Should I see what happens? What should I do about that?
I would always call the vet right away. They're your best resource for making sure your dog gets everything it needs. And it may need things like some intravenous fluids to help with that cooling and rehydrating process, so that they are, again, really getting it from the inside out, which is the most important thing. And, you know, if your vet's not open, always know where your emergency vet is. Sometimes your vets have that on their answering machine, but it's better just to make sure you know where your nearest vet is. Have that on your fridge, in your cell phone. So if a situation like this arises, you can get them to the right place as quickly as possible without needing to sort of mess around finding it. And while your dog may seem okay, think of it like you would a little kid. Again, they can't really advocate for themselves, so you want to get them to the medical professionals so that they can be checked out fully. And as I said, receive things like intravenous fluids so that you know that they're really going to be okay after this stressful experience.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you. That's a great tip as well. They can't advocate for themselves at all. So I thought it was interesting what you said a little earlier about the paw pads. You know, if you can't put your own hand on the sidewalk, it's too hot for your dog. I do have a quick question for those people who have dogs with longer coats. I have short-haired dachshunds, as I mentioned, but I did have a Shiba Inu Chow mix in the past, and we thought it would be good for him to shave him in the hotter months, because we thought that would be helpful. And our vet actually told us not to do that. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about coats and, you know, whether or not people should shave their dogs and that kind of stuff to help them cool down?
Your vet was exactly right. You really shouldn't shave your dog down for the summertime, thinking it's going to give them an advantage in being cool. Some dogs' coats are specifically designed for protection against the elements, and so you don't want to take that part of their sort of physiological makeup away from them. It may be that in the winter they need a double coat to protect them from the elements. And by shaving it, you sort of can mess up the makeup of the coat, and it no longer provides that sort of water resistance or cold resistance that they have. And also, the coat gives them protection against the sun for sunburns and those kinds of things. And while we treat our dogs like children, we're not going to be putting sunscreen on them. Maybe a cute hat, maybe some goggles, but I don't want to be trying to wrangle my dog with some SPF 50. So you want to keep your dog's coat clipped for sure, mat-free definitely, and maybe shave their belly if it's really, really hot, and that way they can put their belly on the cold tiles or a cold floor or another cold surface and get some cooling benefits that way. But for the majority of their coat, especially that which is on top of their body, you want to be keeping that in sort of line with what your dog is built for, whether that's built for cold weather, whether that's built for rain resistance, mud attraction. Think about what your dog's purpose is and treat their coat accordingly. And the other thing is, Walks are important. Would never deny that. Walks give dogs exercise, mental stimulation through sniffing. Sometimes my dogs and I just take a sniff walk where they're in control of the walk and they get to sniff and add new smells to their library and really just have a good time. And that wears their brains out. But if you're in a position like we are right now when the weather is just really brutal and unpleasant, you can find other ways to keep your dog occupied and stimulated, whether that's going and getting puzzle toys where you put their kibble in and they have to work out how to get the kibble out, by giving them lick mats where they can have something to lick and that gives them a certain amount of stimulation. Snuffle mats where you hide their kibble within fabric that's like fleecy fabric that's tied up and they can snuffle through and find their treats in there, or a good chew bone or something along those lines. That can mentally stimulate them to the point, not where they can miss walks every day, but you can certainly have a short walk or just a little outside time for potty rather than needing that full walk to get them the stimulation that they need. So I think that's something else that I had to learn about, because I am not taking my dogs out when it's brutally hot on a walk on a hard surface. So getting them a full range of things that stimulate their brains was of something that was key in sort of my dog ownership journey.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I learned that within the past year or so about the sniffing, right? Like if your dog goes out into the yard every day and never gets to go outside its environment, it's not really being stimulated in that way, and it's not learning. So when I do take them for a walk, I try to vary it up in the neighborhood so that they can get different stimulation. But I also do exactly what you do and say, you know what, today is too hot. It's just too hot. So we're going to do something else. We're going to play fetch inside, or, you're just going to lay in my lap all day, whatever, But if I'm not willing to go out into the heat because it's too hot for me, I'm certainly not going to force them to do it. So happy you were able to share your knowledge with us. What else? Is there anything else you want to make sure that we share before we wrap up?
I will give a pitch for volunteering at your local animal shelter, whether that's Middleburg Humane, Loudoun County Animal Services, whichever organization you're near, they can always use your help. They exist to support people who have had to relinquish their animals for whatever reason, and that's a terrible situation. So what we can do is be there to support them financially by making donations, going to their events, or volunteering in person at the shelter. And a lot of shelters have an opportunity for parents and children to volunteer together, so you can really instill that into your kids. Children generally can't volunteer by themselves, but they can volunteer with a parent or with their scouting group. And any help is welcomed. It's an overwhelming task taking care of these animals who don't have homes at present. And so anything you can do to support your local animal shelter, get out there and do it. And it's rewarding.
Real quickly before we wrap up, give us the name and the website address that we need to know about Middleburg Humane Foundation, and anything else you want us to know.
Excellent. So Middleburg Humane Foundation is actually located in Marshall, Virginia, about 15 minutes from Middleburg. They moved there because they had the opportunity to build a state-of-the-art shelter, which is amazing, and it can care for our usual pets, cats and dogs and bunnies. But it can also take horses and pigs and chickens and ducks. And they've even had a pheasant there, of all things. I do not recommend pheasants. They're kind of mean. But
they seem mean.
They can take all kinds of animals out there at the shelter. And it's a beautiful facility. As you said, it's a no-kill shelter, which is really important, I think, for the progression of caring for animals. The website is middleburghumane.org, and there you can learn about their available pets, the team who runs the shelter, the adoption process, and the events that they have coming up. And what I want to highlight in terms of events is that we have these ones are no-cost clinics for vaccinations for FERCP for cats and the equivalent for dogs. coming up in August 2nd and 23rd. You can learn about them on social media and also on their website. And all you need to do is register for the event and show up with your animal, dogs on a leash, cats in a crate, and you can get vaccinations for free to make sure that your pets are kept healthy all year long.
Thanks again for joining me, Jenna. This was great information, and I really appreciate your time and all you do for Middleburg Humane Foundation and our community as a whole. And thanks to everybody for listening to us chat about dogs and heat and how to take care of your pets if they get overheated and how to even recognize it in the first place. Thanks for joining Brown's Bag, and I'll talk to you soon.
Powered by Pounce Solutions.